Hello everyone, welcome to today's presentation where we'll be discussing an essential cybersecurity topic, SQL injection. I'm Derek Smith and I'm going to guide you through the mechanics of SQL injection, its dangers, real-world examples, and most importantly, how to prevent these attacks effectively. So let's get started. Again, I'm Derek Smith and I'm the president of Certified IT Academy. To begin, let's define what SQL injection is and why it's such a threat. SQL injection occurs when an attacker exploits vulnerabilities in SQL queries by inserting malicious code into fields that interact with the database. Now, these vulnerabilities allow the attacker to bypass authentication, extract sensitive data, or even take control of the database. Think of it like an open backdoor to your database. If it's left unchecked, hackers can easily manipulate it to gain unauthorized access. Now, let me break down how SQL injection works. It follows three key steps. First, the attacker identifies vulnerable input points. These could be login files, search boxes, or even URL perimeters. Second, they craft malicious SQL queries to manipulate the backend database. This could allow them to retrieve data, modify records, or escalate privileges. And lastly, they exploit these vulnerabilities to gain access to sensitive data or compromise the system. It's a simple but dangerous process that can have catastrophic consequences if not addressed. Here's an example of how a SQL injection attack works in practice. A typical login looks something like this. An attacker might enter a malicious input like this. This transforms the query into this. Now, to explain, since 1 = 1 is always true, the attacker bypasses authentication and gains access to the system. This is known as authentication bypass, one of the most common outcomes of SQL injection. SQL injection isn't a one-size-fits-all attack. There are several different types, including first, error-based SQL injection. This technique forces the application to produce error messages that reveal information about the database. Next is union-based SQL injection. This method uses union SQL statements to combine and extract data from different tables. Then we have Boolean-based SQL injection. Attackers ask true-false questions and analyze the application's response to extract information. And then we have time-based SQL injection. Delays are introduced to queries to determine whether a condition is true or false based on response time. To highlight how damaging SQL injection can be, let's look at a few real-world examples. In 2008, Heartland payment systems was breached using SQL injection, exposing over 130 million credit card numbers, resulting in over $140 million in losses. In 2015, TalkTalk suffered a breach where SQL injection led to compromise of over 150,000 customer records, costing the company 60 million francs. Sony Pictures was hacked in 2011, where SQL injection played a role in leaking sensitive corporate information. I'm sure you probably remember that one in the news. These incidents demonstrate how devastating SQL injection can be when left unaddressed. The consequences of a SQL injection attack can be far-reaching. First of all, unauthorized access. Hackers can gain control of sensitive data. Then you have data theft or manipulation. Confidential information can be stolen or altered. Then you have financial and reputational damage. Businesses lose customer trust and suffer financial losses. And then we have compliance violations. Failure to protect sensitive data can result in hefty fines under regulations like GDPR, PCI DSS, and HIPAA. As you can see, preventing SQL injection should be a top priority to avoid these devastating consequences. With that being said, let's talk about how to prevent SQL injection. Fortunately, there are proven techniques to safeguard your systems. Number one, use parameterized queries. Parameterized queries ensure that user inputs are treated as data, not executable code. Second, input validation and sanitization. Validate all user inputs to ensure that they conform to expected formats. Next is escaping user inputs. Escape special characters to prevent malicious input from being executed in the first place. Next is implement web application firewalls. Web application firewalls block malicious queries before they reach your database. Next is apply the least privilege principle. Restrict database privileges to limit potential damage. And finally, conduct regular security audits and penetration testing. Regular testing helps identify vulnerabilities and fix them before attackers can exploit them. These practices, if you do them, will drastically reduce the risk of SQL injection attacks. Here is an example of using a parameterized query or prepared statement to prevent SQL injection. By binding user inputs as parameters, this query treats input as data, preventing malicious SQL code from being executed. These parameterized queries are the gold standard for preventing SQL injection attacks. To summarize, SQL injection is a critical vulnerability that allows attackers to manipulate SQL queries. Attackers exploit vulnerable input fields, which can lead to unauthorized data access, data modification, and more. Preventative measures like parameterized queries, input validation, and web application firewalls are essential to protecting your systems. By implementing these best practices, you will strengthen your application security and reduce the risk of SQL injection attacks. That wraps up today's session on SQL injection. If you found this content helpful, please like this video, subscribe to my channel for more cybersecurity tutorials, and drop any questions or comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.